We're excited. This series, I Love His Church, has been such a wonderful time for us. In case you're new and haven't caught the rest of it, God laid it on our hearts earlier in the year. Last year, actually, we were going to do a series called I Love My Church. And God just said, nope, that's not what I want, because it's not your church. It's my church. And so we decided to rename it I Love His Church. Then after that, the next week, another idea came in, said if it's really His church, let's invite some other pastors in here to this church because we're all one church in Jesus Christ. So we said, okay, let's do that. Then another idea came in, said, well, if it's really His church, then let's bless these churches and help their dreams come true. And let's give to support what God is doing in their work, in their congregation. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we really sense that this is a powerful moment for His church as churches come together, as walls come down, as we say we're not in competition with each other. We're on the same team together. We're in the same family together. Truthfully, we are the same church. I'm so excited this morning to have just one of the best people I know. I was thinking about it on my way up here. If I could have anybody, and I mean this sincerely, if I could just have anybody I could imagine to come preach it upward, I don't think I could put anybody above this guy on the list. Mark Hunnicutt was born and raised in Henderson County. He has a ministry in Henderson County for years and years. Many of you, I've already had 3 people this morning as I shook hands, saw Mark come in and said, man, that's a good guy that's preaching this morning. This is going to be great. Because he's had influence in Henderson County for years. There are people in this church that Mark was your youth pastor. In fact, Pastor Nate, he was a wonderful mentor in Pastor Nate's life. Nate was in his youth group. Mark has just ministered in such a powerful way in Henderson County just all his life, and we're so thankful to have him today. His wife Cheryl is here. We want to welcome Cheryl. Cheryl is a missionary with Compassion International. She's been to, Mark told me, 14 or 15 countries. She goes on the mission field about once a month, and we're so thankful for her ministry and what they're doing together. Brevard Community Church is just one of the greatest churches I've ever been around. They put on an event some months ago called Night to Shine with the Tim Tebow Foundation, where they did a prom for kids with special needs. And I was able to go there and watch that night, and it was such a powerful thing. That's just the heart of this church. That's the heart of this precious ministry couple. And I want you to welcome them. They're part of His church. They're part of our church. Mark Hunnicutt, would you give them a big hand as he comes? Love you, brother. Man, it's good to have you.
It's great to be here.
Norma.
Wait a minute. I knew I'd forget that. Is it on? Yeah, sir. Gosh, he told me that down there. I said, I'll forget to turn it on.
Seeing you here makes me want Mexican food.
Yes, there's a story behind that.
Every time we go to lunch, we go to eat Mexican together. So I want some tortilla chips just seeing him.
Right.
All right. Man, it's so good to have you here. We love you guys.
I love this series. I love this series. It's incredible.
We love it too. Tell us about Brevard Community Church. What you most excited about at the church right now? There's a lot. I know.
We're 19 years old, so we're a teenager.
Yep.
I've been there for 2.5 years. My mentor was the pastor before that.
Yeah.
And so I inherited a group of people that were pioneers. They're just crazy. I mean, they want to just do great things for Jesus. We came in, and there was about 2 years span there that didn't have any leadership. So they got kind of maintenance mode. And so we really tried to talk about transformational life change instead of just information in church. And so that was exciting to do. We rebranded the purpose and who we were. And so we exist to move people into a more dynamic relationship with Jesus Christ. And we do that by creating 3 environments where people move with God, where they move with others, and they move others to God. So I grew up in church, and so I was programmed out. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Every day there was a program doing a different thing, and nobody really knew the purpose of the programs. So we created a path, and that path is working real, real well for us because we're seeing life change. And that's what success is at Brevard Community Church, is life change. Because when you encounter Jesus, it changes everything.
That's right.
It changes everything. Not the Southern Ricky Bobby Jesus. The real King of Kings Jesus is what I'm talking about. You know, the biblical Jesus. I mean, some of you got the cultural Jesus. I'm talking about the biblical Jesus. It changes everything about you.
It does. When He comes into your life, it just changes so much, everything. Tell us, Mark, what are you guys dreaming about at BCC? What's God put on your heart for the future?
I really believe that the church in 2019, for it to do what it needs to do, it's got to get smaller. It gets smaller as it gets bigger. And so that happens through small groups, through serve teams. You guys are doing a great job with that, a fantastic job. Thank you so much for greeting my wife and I, parking attendants, security people. I mean, I feel very safe here. Getting a cup of coffee. Thank you so much for doing that. But behind the scenes, some of you may not know this. Is the reason you may not serve on a serve team. Those serve teams pray together. They love each other. They do work together. There's nothing, you can't get to know anybody any better than if you work with them. You know that in your secular jobs. So that's what happens here at church. And so you got to get smaller as you get bigger. And so there's 12 distinct communities in Transylvania County. Transylvania means cross woods. I don't know if you knew that or not. That's where the word came from. And because of all those hollers and mountains that are there in Transylvania County, rivers, there's a lot of distinct communities where they couldn't cross the mountain or cross the river. Yeah. There's 12 distinct communities there. And so I don't know if you know this or not, but there's 12 distinct community buildings in those 12 distinct communities that people that live in those communities can use that community building for free. See where I'm going with this? So our dream is that we get smaller as we get bigger, and we actually plant churches in those community buildings, those 12 community buildings. And I see BCC, the campus, we're at the old Acoustic Union Hall. I see us being like a battleship. Where planes land, F-16 fighters land, we load them up with ammo and bombs, and they go back in their communities and do the thing and make Jesus who Jesus is, come back to the battleship, load it back up. That's what I see. Yeah, but culturally, that's a hard cast. And so we're slowly and gently trying to get people to do it, because if we do that, we have to, you ready for this? Change. Anyway, go ahead. So we're being slow with that.
That word just shut me down right there. No, I love it. Isn't that amazing? Instead of trying to go out and build 12 buildings, being able to plug in with people who are already there and using those buildings for His church. That's powerful. I love that vision. Don't you love that? How many can already see Transylvania County being transformed with the gospel of Jesus Christ? I can see it happen. We're going to give to that. We want to sow some seed into that dream.
Awesome.
And folks at the church, just want you to know, our board met some months ago and budgeted something that we're already giving. But at the end of that meeting, we said, we know Upward, we know our folks, they're going to want to personally invest in this as well. So if you'd like to give to this dream, we want you to do that today. We're sowing seed. We want you to do as well. Everything you give will go to them. You can do that with these black boxes that are on the wall. You can drop an offering in there if you brought it with you. You can give on our website or through our app online. There's a section there that will say under giving, Brevard Community Church, His church, Brevard Community Church. You can give to that. So I want to encourage you to do that either today or sometime this week, and we're going to get that on to them to help stand with them in their dream. Mark, love you, brother. Bring us the word. We love you so much, and thank you for being here today.
This is my second Father's Day without my dad physically, so it's pretty tough for me. We lost him, emotionally and everything else to Alzheimer's about 10 years ago, but he passed away 2 years ago. If you knew my dad, he collected things, buck knives, case knives, Winchester knives, and this is a set of Winchester limited edition 2007 knives.
Wow.
That comes out of my dad's collection.
Wow.
And he mentioned our meetings. We meet about once a month, and you sharpen me, man. You really do. I walk away feeling sharp and lighter and encouraged so much. And so I wanted to give something that meant a lot to me. I want to give it to you. I want to give it to you. Love you too.
It means a whole lot to me now.
Love you too.
Love you.
Thank you, Nate. All right, I love His church. Yeah, I love His church. It's absolutely incredible to be able to stand here and represent the church, Big C. And I'm so proud of the people at Brevard Community Church. I can't even begin to explain how proud I am of them to you guys. And I know that Anthony's proud of you for being the church. And thank you so much for giving. He mentioned not to shine. You guys gave financially to that. So thank you so much. You may not know that, but you gave to that. So I appreciate you so much being involved with his church. There is a place that they keep standards of measurements They keep them there because they always want to know what a foot is, 12 inches. And they have a standard of measurement of 12 inches. If you want to know how much 12 inches really is, you say, Mark, I go to Lowe's or Home Depot and I buy a tape measure. No, the standard of measurement is what every other measurement is put up against, okay? It exists. It's a real thing. The church is established. It was ordained by God. It was created by God. He calls us His bride. Imagine how much we are to love His church if it is His bride. I know you, some of you as husbands, if I start talking smack about your wife, I'm going to get smacked. You know what I'm saying? You love your bride. We are to love the church. But the question has to come up, what church? What church? Tradition, my experiences, my biases, we have gotten away from the standard of church that the New Testament and Jesus lays out for us. We have went way far away from that. And you say, okay, Mark, it's kind of confusing. I get that. Understand that we live in the Western world, and it was an ancient church and a long ways from here, and they had a different language and had different customs. But we are to look more like the church in the New Testament than we are to look like our traditions, our experiences, and our biases. If we are to really bring life change and Jesus working through our lives. So here's what we do. Some people have checked out on church. They say, I love Jesus, but I don't love the church. And I get that some. One of the things I do is I try to constantly, intentionally be around lost people. And I discovered in the South that there's a lot of people that have checked out on church. And they have for good reasons, because we can sometimes be weird. I'm just to be honest with you. We can do things crazy and backwards and just different stuff, and it's just crazy because of our biases and tradition and backgrounds. We're just weird sometimes. So they're like, I don't want to have anything to do with those weird people. So they check out. They've been hurt. They're just checked out. And then other people say, you know what? I know I need to go to church. My mom did. My grandpa did. His great-grandma did. I know our family has always went to church, so I'm going to reside in a chair, in a row, and that's going to be church for me. That's also a wrong vision. And then some people say, okay, we know that it's not. I'm disappointed because I read the New Testament. I'm like, wow, miracles, raised from the dead. All this stuff happens. It's incredible, the power in this New Testament church. It's not happening in the church. And so they start saying, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start reading some books. I'm going to study church history. And I'm going to try to study experts. I'm going to go to dry boards, and I'm going to write it up, and this is our strategy. This is what we're going to do. My dad, he loved to fish, bass fishing. I grew up going fishing with him. We'd wake up at 4 o'clock on Sunday morning, and Saturday morning, not Sunday morning. He would always go to church on Sunday morning. He would not fish on Sunday morning. When I did, he said, son, I hope you catch a 10-pound bass and can't tell anybody because you caught it on Sunday. So Saturday morning at 4 o'clock, we'd try not to wake Mom up. We'd always wake her up, though, by accident. And we'd get in the truck, and he'd say, where do you want to go? I said, I want to go to Clark's Hill. I want to go to Lake Murray. I want to go to Lake Hartwell. And I would carry with me 3 to 4 Bassmaster magazines. You follow me? And we'd be going down the road. When the sun would get up high enough, I'd start reading those magazines. He said, we're going to go to Lake Hartwell, and I know this secondary pocket where that fish should be this time of year. And I said, Daddy, these magazines say that fish should be on points this time of year. Here's what my dad would say. Mark, those fish don't read that magazine. Church, the Spirit don't read them church growth books. We want to follow Him. We want to make sure we're His church. We want to make sure we line up and we fit the standard of measurement that He has for us. And so here's what I know. The local church living and teaching the truths of Jesus Christ is the hope of the world. Now I want you to hear this. Because if we believe this, our activities will change. If we believe this, our lives will change. The local church living and teaching the truths of Jesus Christ is the hope of the world. It's not a solution to education. It's not a solution to addiction. It is not a solution to political problems. It is the solution. The local church living and teaching the truths of Jesus Christ is the hope of the world. I got my old boy sitting back there going, I just want to come to church, go get something to eat, and then go back home, watch NASCAR. Listen, you're not here by accident. God's called you here. You're a piece of this puzzle. You have gifts and abilities that if you don't use those gifts and ability, we're an incomplete picture of what the church is supposed to be, the hope of the world. We're to be distributors of this hope. We're to give it away. We're not to can it inside these four walls. We're to saturate our society, saturate our culture with the church, with the hope of the world, which is Jesus in you. Jesus in you. And listen, when somebody bumps into you, you got to be so full of Jesus. Jesus comes out. You know what I'm saying? You're like, I'll wait till tragedy happens. I'll wait till I need Jesus. No, it's too late then. Because when you get bumped into disease, destruction, divorce, whatever goes on in your life, you know what's going to come out? You. And the world doesn't need you. You are not the hope of the world. Jesus is the hope of the world. And so be filled up with Jesus through your time with God, through Bible study, through small groups. Get the word in you so when you get bumped, Jesus comes out. It's not hard. We've overcomplicated it. We have so overcomplicated this, that He is the Lord of my life, and He is to be in me. And if He's Lord of my life, and He's Lord of your life, guess what? We're all going to follow Him. And the church is going to be what the church needs to be. God has always intended the church to be a people moving with Jesus. Always. He expects, since His resurrection, since Pentecost happened, He expects the church to always be moving. And let's be that church. So this morning, I want to give a kind of a definition of what church is. And it's going to come from Jesus. Okay? So I'm not building on something. It's Jesus' definition. Then I want to tell you 2 activities you should be involved with. You're not going to like them. I'm just going to tell you, because I don't like them. Our society is adverse to these 2 activities. Everything is built in our culture to reject these 2 activities. Okay? And then we're going to look at 3 questions and evaluate if we truly love His church. Or is it just lip service? We love His church, yeah. If we do, we'll evaluate ourselves with these 3 questions. Let's get started. So the church, I'm going to give you some background here. Jesus called His disciples. That word means followers. Followers means you're moving. All right? He didn't call chair setters. He didn't call people that sing songs. He called followers, moving with Jesus Christ. He called them, and there's 12 guys. They're religious. Most of them are religious Jewish boys. And Jesus would take them on a sort of field trip. So the Sea of Galilee, which I've been there, I love the Sea of Galilee. It's really like a lake. It's about the size of Lake Summit. I mean, it's not a sea at all. It's kind of 9 miles long and 8 miles wide. It's not wide at all. On one side of the lake was where all the Jewish boys lived. And nothing went on except religious stuff and good stuff. I mean, they were clean cut. They were good kids. And Jesus would say to them constantly, hey, let's get in the boat and go to the other side. Jewish boys didn't go to the other side of the lake. Okay? They're like, okay, Jesus. And so they got in and they went to the other side of the lake. He was there and he crossed over to Caesarea Philippi. Now, as upright and righteous as this side of the lake was, that side of the lake was unrighteous. It was filthy. It was the gates of hell is what Caesarea Philippi had as an attraction. It was a giant pool of water. And it came out of the mountain and it went underneath the rocks and it came out in the Sea of Galilee. The gates of hell, the people of Caesarea Philippi and their worship of false gods would take things and throw them in there. And if they came out on the other side, it meant God or some God would bless that. It got so wicked that they were throwing babies in there. I mean, they were having drunken parties that were there. I mean, it was nicknamed the gates of hell there in Caesarea Philippi. So Jesus takes them there, and I'm sure they're blown away. They're going, wow, we never seen, oh my gosh, I can't believe somebody to act like this. And then Jesus asks some questions in Matthew 16, 13 through 14. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he then asked his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Well, they replied, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, others say Jeremiah, or one of the other prophets. Okay, so he's asking, what's the word on the street about Jesus, about me? What's going on? What are you hearing? What are they saying? People are saying this and that, and then Jesus asked another question that he wanted them to wrestle with. So he asked them, then he asked, but who do you say I am? Jesus gets personal. I'm not really concerned about what the others think. I'm concerned about what you think. Who am I? People are skeptical about church, but they're not real skeptical about spirituality. There's a need that people have that they're born with, that is a need for God, and a need for Jesus, and a need for redemption. And so Jesus wants to clear this up, and he wants an honest answer from these guys. Who do you say I am? So Simon Peter answered in Matthew 16:16. Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah. The Messiah. The one that is coming. The one that will bring salvation. The one that will bring righteous to the unrighteous. One that will bring holiness to the unholy. They were looking for the Messiah. All these other answers, they were far off base. But Peter was right on target when he said, you're the Messiah, Jesus. You're the one. I'm going all in with you. Savior, Messiah, anointed one. 17, verse 17, Jesus replied, you are blessed, son of John. Because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you, you did not learn this from human beings. When you get a glimpse of Jesus, and not who everybody else says Jesus is, culture, family, friends, but when you truly answer for yourself who Jesus Christ is, you're blessed. And you need to thank God, because it didn't come from your attempts and your education. God revealed himself to you. And I thank God that he revealed himself to me. And I thank God he revealed himself to you. And we make up the church. And then Jesus right here, he makes a transition in verse 18. He says, now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock. And upon this rock, Jesus says, upon this rock, I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. Jesus, big rock. Peter, little rock. There's the difference there between Petros and Petra. Petros means little rock. Petra means immovable rock. It will not change. It will not be moved. Upon this rock, I am going to build my church by using you, Peter, by using the little rocks in 2019 that gather together at Upper Christian Fellowship. I will build my church with those people. Now, I'm sure there were skeptical people like in most churches, and they're sitting there, I believe all 11 other guys were going, Jesus, Peter's probably not the best example to use right there about building your church. He's loud, he's boisterous, he's impetuous, he'll cut somebody's ear off. I mean, he's already proven that, But Jesus takes imperfect things and builds and stacks. Why does he do that? I love this, guys. Get this. You don't get anything else. Get this. Because he will take your weaknesses, and he'll have other people that can defend your weaknesses. But then you have strengths just like Peter had strengths. And he will take and stack you up where you can be strong. And we can defer to your strengths. So the church is made up of a beautiful picture of people coming together. And we are supposed to come together like a puzzle piece. And you defend my weaknesses, but you defer to my strengths. And if we do that together, the church will be strong. His church will be so strong, it'll be incredible that the gates of hell will not able to be propelled against it. So this stuff of going into a neighborhood and pulling in your driveway and hitting a garage door opener and pulling in and hitting the garage door, it closes, and your family of 4 gets out and goes upstairs and gets on the technology and different things. And then it's time for church again. Okay, we'll get in the car and we're all like, and you'll back out of the driveway and you'll come to church and you'll slip in and sit down. And you'll slip out. You can't wait to get back in your car and put on your earbuds. Everybody doesn't have to talk to each other. And it's not community. It's a false sense of community. And we got a high level of technology. Look at this. This is incredible. But a low level of community. People don't talk to each other anymore. People don't know the needs that everybody has. I guarantee you, listen, I've been a pastor for 27 years. On every row, there's at least 2 to 3 major needs. Major needs. You wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be here if you didn't need Jesus. You wouldn't be here. The people don't think they need Jesus. They're not here. The reason you're here is because you have needs. And we need to start sharing those needs and start loving each other. And then the world's going to go, wow, there's no perfect people at that church. Matter of fact, there's no perfect people in his church. They're like Peter. And they come together and they defend each other and they defer to each other and they make up something stronger than they can ever be by themselves. It's the church. It's community. It's community. And we sacrifice that for technology? What? Those friends on Facebook aren't your friends. Come on now. Well, I follow this person on Twitter. They live in Oklahoma, and it's a girl. She's 24. No, she's not. It's probably a 42-year-old man in prison somewhere tweeting you. You don't know who that person is. Don't substitute that. Don't change that out. Don't do that. Don't do that. So he says the gates of hell. None of the disciples. The first time, did you catch that? I will build my church in Matthew 16:18. That's the first time the word church is used. It's the first time in the whole Bible the word church is used. Look at the context it's used in. Look where they were. Look what they were doing. Look what Jesus intended the church to be. And the reason that nobody said, because I asked this question and studying this, I'm like, why didn't somebody raise their hand and say, Jesus, what's church mean? It's because the Bible wasn't written in English. You know that, right? Okay, just clear that up. And so the word church meant movement. It meant movement. It meant, the official definition is ecclesia. And it's a group or assembly of persons called together for a specific purpose. It had nothing to do with religion in that day. It had to do with movement. And when we think of church as anything except a movement, we think of church as a building, we're wrong. And you want to talk about how the enemy works in spiritual warfare? Man, we can go into addiction. We can go into pornography. This is one of the biggest things the enemy has used to keep the church from being the church, is to convince you guys that it's not a group of people, it's a building. There ain't nobody in here but us, right? Okay, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say something. When you leave an ecclesia because somebody's wearing a hat on stage, when you leave an ecclesia because the music's too loud, you're not leaving a building. You're leaving a group of people. Look down your row. If you knew what that person was going through, that's who you're leaving. It's silly. It's crazy. It's crazy. What Jesus says the church is and what we've made the church, there's a mile of difference between it. A mile of difference. So let's get back to being the church Jesus has called us to be. All right, I told you I would tell you about 2 activities. That loving his church is about embracing 2 activities. Number 1, I need to embrace work. I told you wouldn't like it. Work. Being a part, now you're not working for salvation. There ain't a bit of work involved with salvation. It's grace. But when I accept Jesus, I follow him. That means I got to move, and he's gifted me. I exercise that gift. I didn't ask for it. I don't deserve it. He's given me a gift, and that's what I use in the church. But to use that, it involves work. I have to get up and I have to be involved. If you're shut in and you stay at home, maybe you're on the prayer team, he's giving you the gift of prayer, you pray. It's work. But people don't like work. We work harder to try to get out of work than if we worked. And work's not a sin. And you say, Mark, work happened after the fall in the Garden of Eden. No, you read your Bible. They were working in the garden, tending the garden before sin happened. And guess what? In heaven, we're going to work. Yeah. It's there too. That's another message, but it's there. Both ends. We're going to work. So as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, I have to work. Jesus teaches in Matthew 25 about the parable of gold and the 3 servants. I don't have time to get into it right now, but basically he gave one guy 5, this parable did. Jesus teaches this. He says the master gave one guy 5 talents, gave another guy 3 talents, and another guy 1 talent. Okay, so he said to them, he said, I'm going to leave. You manage my money. You be good stewards of my money, and I'm going to come back. When are you going to come back? You don't know. You don't know when I'm going to come back. And so what happens was the man with 5 talents, he went out and he used it, and he doubled his 5 talents. The man with 3 talents went out and he worked, and he doubled his 3 talents. The man with 1 talent buried it in the ground, and he sat on it in a chair like you're sitting in now. And he said, you know, at least I got my 1 talent. And so the master came back, and he says to him, guys, let's skip to Matthew 25 through 28. The guy says, the 1 talent guy, by the way, there's no 1 talent people in here. I believe you're all 5 talents. Amen? So this guy's 1 talent. It's just a story. I was afraid I would lose your money. That's why I buried it. So I hid it in the earth. Look, here is your money back. I mean, what are you so upset about? Master, here's your money back. I didn't lose your money. But the master replied, get this. I want you to see this. You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested the crops and didn't plant and gathered crops, I didn't cultivate. Why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on what was deposited. Wicked? Really? Gee, whoa. Jesus is telling a parable, earthly story with a heavenly meaning. He's telling a parable here. He said, okay, I've given you talents, all you disciples, and I want you to go steward it well. And it's going to take work. And then number 2, the second thing it's going to take, you ready for this? Change. How do you get 5 talents to 10 talents? You got to change. How do you get 3 talents to 6 talents? You got to change. How do you get 1 talent to 1 talent? Don't do anything. Don't do a thing. You keep coming twice a month, parking in the same place, coming in the same door, sitting in the same seat, checking your kids in the same classroom. You keep doing that twice a month. You're like, I come more than twice a month. No, you don't. No, you don't. I'm serious, you don't. Well, I watch on the internet. Yeah, you're right. I tried that when I don't go to church. I watch on the internet, plus I'm watching Sports Center at the same time. I mean, no, you don't. And you know what Jesus says? Wicked. How wicked do you have to be to have the answer, not a solution, the answer, the hope of the world, and sit on it? And sit on it. And not scream from the rooftops about the gospel and about Jesus and using your gifts and going all in and saying, I don't know what it looks like, but I'm going to work and I'm going to change everything I do. I'm going to be involved with what Jesus wants me to be involved with. I am going to be a 5-talent servant. In the church I love. The church I love. Shell and I, we had the opportunity to, about for Valentine's Day, the tickets to the Western North Carolina Nature Center. Yeah, it's a good place. You need to go. It's in Asheville. And I bought the behind-the-scenes thing where they get to feed the animals and different things. She loves it. She loves animals. I mean, she loves animals. Mark, you love animals? I like animals. Okay, husbands, that's a good thing. If your wife loves it, you got to like it. You know, she likes it. She loves antiques. You at least got to like it. You know what I'm saying? So we went up there, and it's behind the scenes. And they're cutting up like baby mice and filling them full of water and this kind of thing. And they're going to feed the animals, the owls, the mountain lion, the cougar, different stuff, and the goats, all kind of other things. And so they had these like balls that had holes in them, and they had some mice frozen in ice blocks and different stuff. And we're like, what is that? Oh, those are enrichments. Enrichments. So, okay, she kept saying that over and over. We put it up high. Why'd you put it up high? We want to do an enrichment activity. And so basically animals that are wild animals, that are offensive, that growl, that show their claws, when they come into captivity, they get domesticated and they get lazy. And what they said was, hey, we want to give them enrichments so they'll stay tuned up, so so they won't be domesticated. So when they're released back into the wild, if there's a time for them to be released, it won't be so foreign to them. So we want to do enrichment activities. If we feed them in the same spot at the same time every day, they'll grow lazy. So we want to do enrichments. We want to put it up high, down low, freeze it, put it in a puzzle. We want to do different things. And I'm like, yes. What about the sheep? Do they do enrichment? Oh, she said they're the worst. They're the worst. We got to do enrichments with them all the time. And I'm punching Cheryl. She was like, stop it. And so, yeah, anyway, she was feeding a cougar when I asked her that question. And she said that if you ever see a cougar in Western North Carolina, it's not native to Western North Carolina. They don't exist anymore. There's a southern cougar and a western cougar, but not an eastern cougar. And I said, ma'am, I saw a cougar in a convertible driving through Biltmore Park the other day. And I should not have said that, should I? So forgive me, I had a stroke. So yeah, anyway, she laughed. Thank God she laughed, and everybody else did too. But she said the sheep were the worst. So when Pastor Anthony, Pastor Nate, you hear about a change, they're not changing stuff. They're providing you with enrichment opportunities. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're doing. And if we love His church, that's what we'll do. We don't get so stuck and so settled that we're willing to move and we're willing to grow and we're willing to be challenged, because when you do that, you'll love Jesus with all of your heart, Ecclesia, a group or assembly of persons called together for a specific purpose. Jesus is building a movement. He has been, He is now, and He forever will be. And I want to encourage you to get involved with His movement, to move. You say, Mark, if I do what you're telling me to do, if I come to church 4 times a month, I'm going to have to change my life completely. Amen. You're welcome. Mark, I have to change my spending habits. You're welcome. Mark, I have to change the way I disciple my kids and spend time with them. You're welcome. This is not to harm you. It's for your good. And the enemy has set up this, crazy in the West, this crazy perception that it's not going to be good for you. It's going to be good for you. Let me ask you a question. Is going to church more a bad thing? No, everybody say no, but your schedule doesn't look like that. Let me get real practical. Let me tell you if you love His church. Show me your calendar. Show me your calendar. Show me your checkbook. If we truly believe the local church living and teaching the truth of Jesus Christ, the hope of the world, man, we'll go all in. We'll go along. It won't be something we do on the side like everything else and we franchise it. It'll be going all in. Be going all in. Your calendar will look like small group. It'll look like you're going to see a friend that needs a word of encouragement. Your checkbook will look like giving to the church like it matters, not tipping the church like it matters. That's what it'll look like. Got quiet in here. Hey, I love His church. I love His church. And don't let boo birds tell you that you shouldn't love the church. This Sunday morning, there'll be more people in local churches in America than combined Major League Baseball for the whole season, NFL football for the whole season, NHL hockey for the whole season, basketball for the whole season. There will be more people in the church in America today than all the sporting events combined. God is working. God is moving. God is alive. Jesus was alive then. He said the gates of hell will not prevail against my church, but he's alive now. It's the same Jesus then as he is now. Let's understand. Don't quit watching the news. Good gracious. I don't care what the news says. The church is alive because Jesus is alive, and there's still people following Jesus, and miracles are still happening. Do not have the wrong perspective about what Jesus said the church is. It's a group of people moving with God. Hey, will you bow your heads and will you please close your eyes? Father, thank you for this opportunity to come and share, teach what your word has to say. God, help us to be like those original disciples and get a little uncomfortable about going to the other side of the lake. Lord, if we've set our lifestyle up in a routine or a pattern that it blocks out the world and the unchurched, God, help us to change that. God, help protect us from the world getting in us. But God, free us and loose us for us to get into the world, to make a difference, to be salt, to be light, to be your church. God, where perceptions are wrong, where backgrounds and experiences and bias are wrong, and they go against what your word says about what the church is. Lord, help me to repent. Pray everybody in this room would repent. And God, they would accept who you say the church is and who you say they are. Lord, right now, I pray they would see themselves the way you see them, and God, the way you gifted me to see them. That God, they're special. They're a 10 somewhere. Lord, forgive us as leaders for hurting someone, for crushing a spirit. Lord, forgive us of that. Lord, I pray you'd you would redeem people in this room, that God, they don't feel worthy. Lord, let them see that they're a 10 somewhere, that you want to use them and you want to work through them to be a part of something greater than themselves. And that's your church. And then God, for the people on the outside that have not yet made a decision to ask you to be the forgiver of their sins and the leader of their life, God, may this be the day that they do that. May this be the day where they say, God, I know I'm a sinner and I need your forgiveness. I ask you to be the forgiver of my sins and the leader of my life. Lord, I love you. I love you. God, you work. You do what we can't do right now, Jesus, in hearts and minds. And we ask it in your name. Amen.